This little tab is pushed over, which I can't even do with my hand. Got another video for you today. Today we're working on the Magnum again. I've got some error codes that are causing check engine lights, or a check engine light, and I'm going to try and take care of some of those today and do a bit of a tune-up. I'm going to replace the plugs and wires, going to do regular spark plug replacement, which I've had the car since it had about 50,000 miles. I've never done it. I'm pretty sure it's still got the original spark plugs in it, which are supposed to be changed every 30,000 miles. So we're going to change those. I'm going to put shorty wires on it. The 2005 Hemi engines had this rat's nest of spark plug wires. So there's another wire set you can get that will shorten those up, clean that up a little bit. I don't think there's any performance gain. In fact, it might actually be marginally less, but we're going to try it, see how it handles it. And then we're going to try and get rid of some of these error codes by changing some sensors and stuff like that. So the error codes I'm getting are a 1521, which I think is wrong oil viscosity, which can also come from the 0520 error code that I'm getting, which is oil pressure switch, which I'm going to replace. And then I've got an 0406, which I think is an EGR valve issue, so I'm going to replace that as well. And then an 0430, which is a bad catalyst on the left bank, so it could be an exhaust leak. I do have a pretty bad exhaust leak, so I'm going to try and fix that with some heat tape, see if that does the trick, and then eventually we'll get an oil change, make sure that the right viscosity oil's in there, and see if we can get all these air codes cleared and get my check engine light to shut off. So let's do it. So the first thing I'm going to tackle is the EGR valve. I've got the air box off and the engine cover just to give myself some more room. The EGR valve is right here. It's got 4 bolts that need to be undone. First thing you need to do is get this clip off. So you just slide the red tab and then pinch it, and it should pull right off. And while we've got the EGR valve off, we're going to do the oil pressure sensor too, because it's kind of hard to get to. A lot of people say you need to remove the alternator to do this, but I'm going to try and do that without removing the alternator. So we'll see how that goes. So the EGR valve has 2 8mm bolts right here, and then on the front, connecting it to the cylinder head, are 2 10mm bolts. One looks like it's pretty easy to get to, the other one might cause some trouble. So let's start off with the 8mm bolts. Okay, I had to use a 1/4-inch drive ratchet to get this other bolt here. I'm going to save these gaskets because I don't think my new EGR valve came with gaskets. Should also note that if your engine is hot, this will be very hot. So be careful of that. And I'll show you in a minute here. This makes it a lot easier to see the oil pressure sensor that we're going to try and get to without taking anything else off the engine. Alright, so you can see just to the right of the alternator is the oil pressure switch that we're going for. Get my light in there. We're going to go from the front. I don't know if I'll be able to get much footage of that, there's a little red tab that you have to slide sideways on the bottom of the plug there. And then we'll have to squeeze it and pull that plug off and get a 1 1/16 inch socket on there to pull it out. So we'll try it. So as it turns out, this oil pressure switch is pretty hard to get to. Even with the EGR valve off, it's tough. So I'm a little frustrated right now. I've been working on it for a while. Thought about trying to take the alternator off. That's gonna be just as much of a challenge, so we'll see. I'll let you know how it turns out. Okay, I did 2 more things to give me some more room in here. The first thing I did was I removed the fan assembly, which, if you don't know how to do that, it's just 2 10mm bolts. You have to unplug this guy. You can see how to do that in my radiator replacement video. And then I removed the belt from the alternator pulley. And to do that, you just need to get a 3/8 pry bar into this notch here and pry in the direction that will loosen the tension on the belt. And make sure you take a picture of the belt setup beforehand so you don't accidentally forget how to put the belt back on when you're done. This oil pressure switch may be easier to get to now. So here's the plug from the oil pressure switch. It was upside down in my application. I think its orientation really depends on how tight and how the pressure switch is oriented. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's an 1¼ inch deep well socket for the oil pressure switch, and I have it on a breaker bar with a short, I think it's a 2 or 3 inch extension. It's the only 1/2 inch extension that I have, so we'll see if we can get this loosened and then we'll pull it out. That was actually pretty easy. There you have it. There's our old oil pressure switch. Looks like there was some leaking going on there. So we'll put the new one in and see if that fixes our error code. We're just gonna put that one in by putting it in that socket. And then we'll start threading it in, and then we'll tighten it up. Nice and easy, not cross-threaded. It's to the Loctite, so now it's going to take a little bit more effort. All right, we are going to reconnect the EGR valve. Going to do that in the opposite order that we disconnected it. So we'll start with 10mm bolts. So the oil pressure switch and the EGR valve are done. They're back in the car. I've got the fan assembly back in, belts all hooked up. So that was a little tougher than I thought. Usually is with me. So I'm slow. I'm not a mechanic. I just do this stuff in my spare time when I can. So trying to save a few bucks here and there. I'm gonna do the spark plugs now. Change some wires. So we'll get into that. I'm not going to show you everything, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, as you can see, I've already done one cylinder, so I'm going to show you how to do the next one here. You're going to start off by unplugging the coil pack, just as quick flip of this little tab here. Flip the tab, squeeze it on the back, pull it off, pull it out of the way. Right. And then you've got two 10mm bolts on each coil pack. Depending on their location, you may need to use different extensions or elbows. Okay, get this one up here. Try and keep track of everything. Okay, then you want to carefully remove the coil pack. I'm actually replacing the plug wires too, so I will remove that boot there. And I'm actually going to remove the whole boot on the coil pack too, because I'm going to replace that. Be kind of difficult. You might have to use some force on that or some tools. I'm going to set the coil pack up here while I get the new boot. You also want to pull the other boot out. Put that up out of the way. All right. And then for the plugs, I'm using a 5/8 spark plug wrench, but I've got the rubber boot removed. There we go. the boot removed, I'm using a piece of 3/8 inner diameter tubing to just latch onto these plugs and get them out the rest of the way. That's also what I'll use to put them in, so I can get them finger tight first. There we go. For the new plugs, we'll add a little bit of anti-seize to them. Just gonna use my finger to spread it out a little bit. And I've already got these gapped. The gap is set at 0.045. I like to leave these holes open as little time as possible. Too tight either. Oops. New plugs are in there. So for the new boot on the coil pack, I've got a little bit of plug grease on the spring in there. And I'm just going to insert the boot onto the coil pack. Get it facing the right direction. Snap that down onto the plug. Also got a bit of plug grease on the new wire. That will get down as well. Go. Then we'll put the bolts back in. finally plug the coil pack back in and snap that plug back into place. Now we just got to do 6 more. Okay, there's the final product with the shorty wires. All 16 plugs have been replaced. All the boots have been replaced. We have a new EGR valve. Down there, past the EGR valve, there is a new oil pressure switch. I've had the negative battery terminal disconnected, so next step will be reconnecting that, starting her up and seeing how she sounds. Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Magnum. It's been about 3 weeks, I think, since I did all the repairs and the tune-up. So I changed the EGR valve, the oil pressure switch, and changed all the spark plugs, new wires, new boots on the spark plugs and everything like that. The goal was to get rid of all of my error codes and get the check engine light off. Currently the check engine light is off. It came on briefly and I got a P0430 code for a couple days, which is catalyst related. So still having issues with that, but for the most part the check engine light is off all the time. I did not get my exhaust leak fixed. I used some heat tape to try to fix it. I think I failed. I didn't use I have 2 pretty big exhaust leaks, one on each side, and I only had 1 package of heat tape. I tried to use it to fix both leaks, and you're only supposed to use 1 package for 1 leak, 1 small leak. So I've got at least one side that's still leaking right behind the catalytic converter, which is right near the downstream oxygen sensor. So that might be why I'm getting that error code. So anyway, I've been driving it. It's everything's going well, and for the most part, no check engine light. I might do some catalyst cleaner that you can put in your gas tank, and I might try and work a little more on the exhaust leaks, but I think I'll probably have those professionally repaired at some point when I get really tired of hearing them. So there you go. I'm going to consider this repair to be a success for now, and we'll see what happens in the future. Stay tuned for the next project, and if you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to subscribe and click the like button on this video as well. See you later.